I'm glad that the two of you could join us. This is kind of fun to get you two together so we can see not only your individual opinions on things, but also kind of any ensuing discussion. No fights now. No, keep it clean.
No, we're too mellowed out at the moment, aren't we?
All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is that some people will say the idea of making money by selling the actual music is kind of dying out, that it's harder and harder to make money by making one song and sell 1 million records, and that kind of that old model is dying out. How do you see the industry adapting to that? What can you do?
You can start. Well, I'm finding myself being just retooling myself as more of an entrepreneur in music. You really have to approach it from more of a business aspect now than dealing with the music. I think that's the biggest change. Before, maybe 20 years ago, music was the most important thing. It was all about the music. Now you have to take care of the business before you can even do the music correctly, because otherwise you don't have time to do the music.
Right.
You know, so now you find yourself being more of a business person and dealing with technology, and also being more of a web person as well, because now the internet is taking over where record companies used to do the distribution. Now you have internet. And because of the internet not being something that we all can control, we don't get our money anymore for the music.
Right.
So with that being said, the biggest thing that I'm trying to do now is master the internet, master business, and bring everything back into my environment business-wise, where I can control what's going on. Because otherwise, if you don't control it, someone else will control it, and you may not know who that person is today.
Ah, and you'd rather be that person.
Yeah, I have to be, or I won't make any money. So, yeah.
Now, Acoustic Alchemy just put out an album, or is out in just a few days from now. And so is the hope to see the revenues based on album sales or concert tickets, or kind of where do you see that happening?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything. I totally agree with all that. It's from what I've seen, most people are setting out their own stall. We're all sort of becoming our own little shops now, aren't we?
Yeah,
instead of all of us working for a great big company somewhere, everyone just has their own shop. Internet's the shop window, and the idea is that, okay, well, we're going to make a whole lot less money out of this, or the product's going to make a whole lot less money, but we're going to have a bigger chunk of it. So instead of having 1% of a big pile of money, we're actually going to have 50% of an incredibly much smaller pile of money.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's the way it's going to do, and with it, as you say,
I agree.
This whole thing that we have the control, so forth, got to be hit business-wise. So you're right with the alchemy thing. We've started by, so we've got the product, we've got the album, which we recorded ourselves, our own studio. So at our expense, really. So it's entirely our investment. Normally it would be the record company's investment, but it's our investment this time. And we are currently licensing. We've licensed it to Concord Heads Up in America, a good strong label, and we're looking for other licensees around the world. We're releasing it on our own label in the UK, which we've created, which is all part of the shop, with the little shop window. And now, yeah, we're seeing how it goes. Really, obviously, what we're doing is we're employing people. In specialist areas. People normally, the record company would have done this, PR, the whole thing, the distribution. You've got to sort of do it in house now.
Yeah.
And it's a curve. It's a learning curve.
Yeah, it's a learning curve.
You know,
it's definitely a new approach with a new age.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, I think it is worth it. I think it's going to be better for the music and most of all, us to make a living as musicians, because we're artists at heart.
Yeah.
We love the music, and this is what we want to do. But we can't do it if you don't have the time to put into the craft. And you know, just becoming a part of the business and making it a part of your lifestyle, and you controlling the revenue that's coming in, makes you your biggest enemy instead of the buck stopping at the record label because they dropped you, or you know, a place where you can't control it. So I think now we're in more control, and I think at the end of the day, if you're successful, and when you become successful, it's all yours, and it's a better payday, and it's a much more longevity as well as stability.
I hear that. All right. That's a good spot to head off to the next question. Now this is a little bit of a tough one because it sort of comes out of my weird business brain. So something I noticed with Harley, and I wonder if it translates to the music industry. And I'm a Harley fanatic, and I ride, and it's awesome. And so I've noticed that when you think of the Harley brand, it's got this feeling, right? It stands for freedom and rebellion and these things, and it's more of a brand idea. They're not consciously saying we stand for freedom, right?
No, it's a philosophy.
It's a philosophy,
yeah.
right? It's a brand idea. So when people hear your name or the name of your band, what do you want them to feel? What do you want that to stand for?
I'll let you say.
Well, I think it's not something that I think we've consciously thought about. But if the whole idea of this brand is new. I mean, when we started as a band, it was the name of the band. Branding didn't come into, these are, pretty recent concepts. Yeah. Although you cannot, you can't dispute the power of a good brand now. It's absolutely, it's all powerful, omnipotent. But if I was to think about what I'd like our brand to communicate, I guess I could maybe also, what people say is that they think the sort of music we create is, we've never made we're not intense musicians in Acoustic Alchemy. Right. There are intense guys out there who make some very intense music. What we try and make, in the best possible sense, is nice music. We want to make beautiful music, which is
almost relaxing.
Well,
it's very.
I think we want it to reflect the sort of guys that we are. I mean, we take our music very seriously, but we don't. I don't think we take ourselves hugely seriously. We're sort of fun-loving chaps for our age, and I think if people knew that the brand meant quality, because we always put a huge amount of effort into making it sound as good as we possibly can within the various limitations, our playing limitations, the budget, recording limitations. I think everyone wants it to sound as good, innovative as we can. That's another angle that we always push. We want it to be different. We're not the sort of outfit that's happy to put out the same record again and again. But also I think people have this association with the sort of texture of our music. A lot of people, the aesthetic of our music is a sort of, I'm not sure.
I think I can describe it. I've mentioned the band to people, and every time you say Acoustic Alchemy, and they want to say like, oh yeah, I know them, but they say it like, oh yeah, and they kind of relax when they think of it, right? It has that effect.
Yeah.
This is nice. Yeah.
Well, you said
that
it.
feeling.
I'm on the spot because I've never had to think of a word which would describe it.
I think the word is...
There's probably several words. Thank you very much indeed. You said it.
There you go. Now, how about you, Kevin?
Well, I guess for speaking for me, in terms of my name, and what I do as a basis, I think I'd like my music to reflect people, the people that are listening to it. I like to be the voice or the person inside of you that you don't necessarily reach or you can't do. So I like for my music to reflect other people's emotions. That's what I'd like my name to represent, my music to represent. Because I play music for people. And it's a reflection of our lives. Because we're all kind of one. And every time I listen to your music or look at someone else, I'm always looking at them and applying myself to them. What do I have in common with that person?
Right.
And music to me is something that is an emotion that we all have in common. It's just an emotion that we don't necessarily look at as an emotion that we wear every day, but music is definitely an emotion. So with that, I like to use that as a reflection of me. It's an emotion,
Right. And that's a very different feel for the brand, which is your name. Because you as an individual is what you're selling, basically.
Yeah.
but that's what kind of what makes you unique, and that's why people are going to call on you. Now, with the downturn of the economy, everybody's had a difficult time. Every industry, everywhere, everybody across the world. I can't say it's getting any better. It really doesn't look like it. So if we say to ourselves, okay, you know what, it's a bad economy, fine. Let's all just kind of deal with it. Is there any way to have kind of an advantage in this environment? What do you do to kind of get ahead? What do musicians do?
Well, I'll tell you what was never changed for hundreds of years, and that's the idea of a guy just at your basic level, a guy sitting in the corner of a pub playing, even if it's just for his supper.
Yeah.
It works. That's what's happened for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. There's been a guy who can play and take people's minds off the day-to-day, make them happy for a bit, and I suppose the next level up from that is that if you can still go out and gig, that's a big part, because if the whole file sharing piracy thing goes as bad as it possibly could, and we'll never get a penny back from that, and music is just given away free, no one ever, the way it's getting flooded, the one thing you can still do, if you can get it together and get your own thing together, is you can go out and play, and hopefully there are still enough people out there who maybe don't want to spend what few bucks they've got on a new car because they're too worried about the job and so on, but they've got enough bucks to think, well, hell, it's the end of the week, let's just go see a gig,
Yeah.
Let's get out. Let's get away from it.
And
we
feel
can't afford
better
to go on
for a
holiday,
while.
but let's see a gig.
Yeah.
I agree, Miles. I'm piggybacking on what he just said. Basically, you definitely have to live the lifestyle now of a musician in order for it to be lucrative. As for before, you could have a guy that was a postman or a police officer, and on the side they could play music. You know what I mean? And still, get over it at one point. But nowadays, if you're going to do music or any type of entertainment with the economy, you have to live the lifestyle. And I think that's what he's basically saying. We have to do it for a living. It has to be something that you're constantly building on in your life, so that your whole life reflects music. Everything I do is musically related. Everything I do. And that's the only way I can survive as a musician. Because if I do anything else, it takes away from what I do. And I've been doing it for so long, thank God, that my environment, what I've created, enables me to keep doing what I'm doing. Because I have all musician friends.
Yeah.
Everything I do is musically inclined or in some type of multimedia. Like I'm working on a TV show now,
Really?
you know what I mean, where I'm doing some acting and doing a couple other things, you know what I mean? But it's all, at the end of the day, still related to music and entertainment. And I'm going to say entertainment in general. Not just music.
Very cool. Okay, I want to hear a little bit more about that later. So now another idea that's come along is trying to get fans, in the instance of the music industry, or customers in general, so fans in this case, to organize themselves, right, if at all possible. It's a wonderful thing when fans get together and say, we just really must have a show. You must come to our town, or we're going to get a big group together and we're going to come see you play somewhere. And basically fans organizing themselves. Is there anything that a musician can do to encourage that? And I don't have the answer here. That's why I don't know.
Well, I mean, all you can do is you make yourself as available as possible in a broader sense. You make yourself, because obviously if someone else is, if you say you're suggesting that a group of fans are going to promote their own gig. I've heard of this. It's starting to take off a little bit in England, where I know of a small village, just in a really rural area, did just this. They said, we're fed up of this, fed up of turning on TV and watching bad TV. We don't live anywhere near London, but we want a good show. Let's bring Robin Ford in. So they brought in, they got themselves together, got the local hall, and put on a gig. And so they did it, and that was just that. It was a community thing.
Wow. So
if you take that example, you've got to give them the tools to do that. So I guess they're naive. How do we go about doing this? Right. So you've got to give them the tools. You've got to give them your agent's number. I mean, it's not a big deal. You just say, well, this is our agent. Talk to him. If there's any problem, talk to our manager. these are the people you need to talk to. This sounds like a great idea, but yeah, it's communication when it comes to. It's got to be, which is a huge part of being the whole music. It's all the network reigns supreme. It's about loads of communication, and also bending. You don't oh, we're not coming out for. We never come out for $5,000. It's got to be 10 grand. So, that's the business side of it. You really want to do this. It's a lovely idea. Let's do this. And we can get another. I tell you what, we'll do your gig, and if we can get another gig in the area, then we will do it for $5,000 or whatever. It's all the negotiation, communication thing.
Yeah, I agree. He's put it in a nutshell. All about communicating. I think the more exposure you get on the internet, we have the internet, the more that you play and get yourself out there. Anyway, charity work, any way that you can get people to see you in the limelight and see you in the limelight doing what you do best, I think is going to be the biggest thing in the world to support your music.
And then just let people be people.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, this is an interesting trend that kind of is a little bit shocking for businesses, and I can only imagine for musicians. But certain states here in the U.S., and they may be taking a lesson from France on this one, are considering taxing people based on the fact that they worked hours in their state. So let's say you live in Maryland, but you did a gig in California. They're one of the chief states kind of going after this. Then at the end of the year when you pay your taxes, California says, well, we want our taxes too for those hours that you worked in our state. Mm-hmm. And then several other states were kind of like, yeah, that's a great idea. We want that too. What kind of nightmare would that be for musicians?
I actually had that problem when I toured with Justin Timberlake. In actuality, when you perform in a particular state, they do tax you if you're paid by a business out of that particular state. For instance, if we did the Oprah Winfrey show, for instance, and when I got my tax form, it was from the state of Illinois. And so I had to file taxes in Illinois, not in Maryland where I live.
Right.
So I had to file that tax there, you know what I mean, and that was separate. So in reality, they're already doing it.
Right.
In a sense, so I'm not sure I'm following exactly.
Not every state.
Not every state,
right.
but it's pretty
rare.
mandatory for you when you have to pay taxes if you work. For musicians, wherever you work, that's your state of residence. So when you tour, when you go to New York, you get a check there, you have to pay New York taxes.
Wow.
When you go to Maryland and you get a check there.
So they're already doing this to musicians.
Yeah, you can't go to New York and work and then pay New York taxes in Maryland. This is already being done. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had that problem with Justin Timberlake.
This doesn't really happen in other industries. They're just starting it.
It's been happening at least the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Because I've had that problem.
Right, but you may play all 50 states in the course of a year.
I've done that, and I had to go and file something in all 50 states. Yeah.
That's a nightmare.
You had to actually go around to each state, collect your taxes, you know what I mean? Then they have a form for that where you can put them all in one big one form.
Right.
But you have to go to each state, and they all send you one of the forms of what you did. You have to take that form and do another file, and you file that. And you have to send it to each state, and then they take their money and pay you back your taxes, or you have to pay them.
Wow.
That's probably.
So now you have to be an accountant too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think as entrepreneurs and musicians especially, I don't think we should pay taxes because.
I second that.
Yeah.
I second that.
And one reason, for sure, that one thing that we don't get medical benefits. We don't get compensation if we get hurt.
You're a freelancer.
We don't get any. If something happens to us, medical-wise, nobody comes and pays our bills, or nobody comes and gives us a compensation check, or we get any leave.
Right.
So
you don't work, you don't get paid.
Yeah. So in saying that, the taxes that we're paying should pay for our medical and the things that we need to do as musicians, because and we work all the time. I work 24/7. Yeah. So to me, I don't think it's fair for musicians or any entertainers in what we do to pay taxes on
Right. Freelancers and business owners have the same ordeal. You
Yeah.
don't. If you want medical insurance, you get it yourself.
Right.
And it's not cheap.
Exactly.
And you work 24/7. If you don't work,
Absolutely.
you don't get
Exactly.
paid. And yeah, that's cool.
Yes.
Okay, now our last one is when you come into a particular town, is there anything you can do in that town to drum up local interest, local attendance for whatever you're doing?
Well,
What can you do?
I mean, it's assuming that normally, sort of in our band, it's a promoter who's bringing you into that town. I guess if you're a little bit further down the ladder in that you maybe a young band starting out, it might not be a promoter. Maybe you've booked your own gig, in which case it will be different.
Right.
I know where we're at. It's a promoter, in which case again.
If you have a promoter, that's their job, that's their problem. And if you
and again,
don't,
you give him the tools for the job. You know, anything that he needs to know. So we often do what we call a phoner, which is we often do this before the tour from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
We'll arrange to speak on the phone at a certain time, and for the local press, say we come to your town. Here's the latest news. We've got a new album out. So forth and so forth. Try and tell them all the exciting things, you know, 3-4 weeks before the date, and then it's the job of the promoter to make sure this gets in the local press, the local media. And as I say, if you're a young band starting out, then you'd have to do it yourself. You know, you ring the local papers, find out who does the column.
right.
Try and be pushy, but be polite and
That's right, but don't be shy about
keep
it.
it sexy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, you summed that one up. That's exactly right.
I mean, this is what takes all the time up. This isn't writing tunes. This
Right.
is what we want to do.
Right.
Writing and playing tunes. This
Yeah.
takes a big chunk of the day.
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely does.
It does.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us. This has been a hoot to get you on.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
pleasure,
great
darling.
for having us.